As the EU parliamentary elections approach, France is witnessing a highly charged political environment. Now, France holds significant influence on the European Parliament with 81 seats, second only to Germany. And the main issues at the forefront now of the election include migration policy, of course, economic challenges, and the rise of political populism. So now, to discuss these issues, we're joined by Professor Jacques Rupnik, Research Director from Sciences Po Paris. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Greetings.
So now, I would love to start with the fact that France is experiencing a notable surge in support for far-right parties, and the National Rally is projected to win 33% of the vote, marking its highest ever result in an EU election. So how do you interpret the rise of National Rally in the context of France's broader political landscape?
There are a number of reasons. One of them is that this is a European election and it doesn't have immediate effect on domestic politics. So you can vent your protest without major consequences immediately, at least. That's one explanation. Another is the erosion of the mainstream right. What used to be, the Republican Party, used to be center-right party, which used to be in the government, had presidents, etc. That party has been shrinking. And it is waging a campaign which is actually quite an interesting campaign. It has a philosopher as its leader for this campaign, Xavier Bellamy, a very intelligent, very articulate man, but clearly not somebody who will gather strong popular support. So there is a number of reasons like that. And then, of course, there is a third reason, which is that what used to be the National Front, and which is Marine Le Pen's party now, the Rassemblement National, it has the strong theme of migration, which it has been used and overused. And the combination of these factors make that they are strongly ahead.
I'm curious as to what influence that has on the discourse. Let's just take the issue of migration. Why exactly is it that we see this shift more for the right-wing popularistic candidates? 33% of the vote. If we compare that here to Poland and say the Confederacja, we're only looking at 10% of the vote. Does that point to larger issues with the political discourse, do you believe, or something else?
Well, certainly it's difficult to compare the National Rally to Confederacja. Mm-hmm. They would compare themselves to PiS. They would consider PiS to be their partner. When Marine Le Pen was campaigning for the presidency, she was received at an official dinner by Prime Minister Morawiecki in Warsaw, just at the beginning of the French campaign. Mm-hmm. So the logical partner she would consider in Poland would be PiS, just as she would consider Viktor Orban and Fidesz to be her partner. And the main issue for this election is what will happen after. Because in France, they will make a strong showing. PiS is strong in Poland. Viktor Orban will win in Hungary. Meloni will win in Italy. And the question is, can all these right-wing, let's say populist parties, as they are now called, can they get together on the European platform? They are at odds. They belong to different groups, as you know. And so the question is, for instance, can Meloni and Le Pen, Marine Le Pen, can they get their act together? If they did, they would have a strong weight on the European politics, but they belong to different groups. And that will be a crucial issue after the election. If, for instance, the group to which Meloni belongs, conservatives and conservatives reformers, same group as the Polish PiS, whereas Marine Le Pen belongs to another far-right grouping. If there was some kind of realignment after the election, that could, of course, change the European ballgame.
That's a fantastic point that you raise. And actually, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Meloni is probably going to have a serious influence on who gets chosen as the president of the European Commission. And President Macron, perhaps, or maybe not perhaps, I'm unsure, will his role be diminished? Will Meloni support, say, Manfred Weber for the job? How do you think that the choosing of the commissioner of the president of the European Commission will look like?
Well, it's difficult to make these guesses because there's a lot of combination. In last time, President Macron played a major role in the choice of Ursula von der Leyen.
Yes.
I'm not sure he's ready to repeat this experience. And no, the interesting thing is that part of what is called the populist, nationalist, or the hard right, let's say, part of them, like Meloni, are becoming more moderate and would possibly tempted by an alliance with the center-right parties, with the EPP. I don't know whether that will work out, but that is one option for them, let's say, to show that they are more acceptable, that they can have more weight on the European scene if they ally themselves with parties like the EPP, the center-right party. And then there is the other group which says, no, all the right-wing, let's say, sovereignist nationalists should act together, should ally and be a counterweight to the two usual suspects, so to speak, the EPP on the center-right and the socialists on the center-left, and they used to govern Europe for decades. So time for change, this is their argument, and we will see how it plays out.
Certainly.
Certainly we'll have to see, but I would love to now zoom in for a moment and take a look at economic concerns that France is experiencing right now, because the cost of living is a significant concern for French voters, alongside with housing and healthcare issues. So these economic challenges have heightened also voter frustration. My question is, what impact do you think the current economic challenges will have on a voter turnout and preferences in the upcoming EU elections in France?
Well, this is a crucial question, the turnout, especially among young voters. The surveys currently show that they have little interest in attending this election. So that's one question. How significant will be the turnout? Secondly, as you say, for most people, the current, cost of living, material issues, security, etc., in their everyday life, that is what matters, and that is what shapes their votes. Whereas President Macron has put the European, of course, he's a strong voice in Europe, and he thinks that he is capable of mobilizing voters on a truly European agenda. There is now a Normandy landing celebration, 8 years anniversary. President Biden has arrived, all the European leaders, President Zelensky is arriving today. So Macron will have, for the next 3 days, the center stage, with all the international leaders saying Europe has to be a strong political actor on the international scene. It is challenged in the east by the Russian war in Ukraine. It is challenged in the south by all the instability in the Middle East. And it is challenged by the instability about American election. What if Donald Trump is elected? What does that imply for Europeans? So that is Macron's agenda. Can these two concerns, the material concerns of ordinary people caring about their cost of living and domestic issues, and on the other hand, the very highly ambitious Macron agenda that is being now proposed to them, that's a very difficult thing. The answer from an academic would be, well, it's a European election. The European agenda should, of course, prevail. But that is not how elections work. Domestic concerns and election turnout will decide.
Certainly. The commemorations provide a significant, well, the potential for a significant boost, especially the timing, right? But that is a very fair question. Will security be the number one issue, or the European agenda be the number one issue for French voters moving forward? I'd like to ask you real quick, to slightly move on. What are you expecting from President Biden's visit? What do you think it will look like in terms of bilateral French-U.S. Meetings, negotiations, and potentially a statement or an agreement?
Well, it's very important. It's a state visit. It's 3 days. It's not just a quickie, photo opportunity and off he goes. No, this is a time to really get to the heart of the matter. And it's a strong symbolic occasion. You cannot find a stronger one. Normandy landing. 80 years ago, U.S. Marines, on the beaches of Normandy. It's a very strong symbol. And the idea that this is really the core of the transatlantic bond and the bond between France and America. Of course, that doesn't mean that France and America have always agreed and will always agree on everything. There are a number of contentious issues, but it is always important to say that all these debates happen within the context of allies. They're strong allies. France was the first ally of the United States more than 2 centuries ago, when they were fighting the British and established the United States of America. Okay, it goes all the way back, but that's a long time ago. What matters, what people can identify with, is the Normandy landing. Yesterday on television, they showed the film, Le Jour le plus long, The Longest Day. Great film about that event of the Normandy landing. It had record viewing. It's like, 5 million viewers or something like that. So it shows that, this is an important bond. You can, of course, put it in the context of the current war. We have to reestablish this strong bond in a situation where we have uncertainty in the East about our security with the war in Ukraine, and uncertainty in the South. Maybe this may not be as obvious in Poland, but in France, this is felt very strongly. The connection to what is happening in the Middle East has repercussions in Europe, very strong repercussions. So you have these two challenges, and in this context, there are a number of issues to discuss. For instance, can the United States apply some pressure, as many Europeans would wish, on Israel to find some kind of ceasefire agreement that could allow humanitarian aid to be provided to the population in Gaza? And more importantly, can it also give some thought to what comes after? One thing is to say we have to defeat Hamas, but then what's the morning after? I mean, what's the plan? And the Israeli government doesn't seem to have much of a plan. They simply say we want to eradicate Hamas. Well, that's fine. But so the debate about the two-state solution, if it's not simply to be a slogan, what do you do about it? And then there is Ukraine. Can the United States? We have seen how difficult it was for the U.S. Congress to deliver, to get an agreement on the budget and aid the $60 billion for Ukraine. And there is great concern in France that what if Biden were no longer president? Would this American support still be there? So this will be another bond. The French and the American president want to strengthen the joint transatlantic support for the Ukrainians.
What a better way to do so than during this kind of a symbolic, like you mentioned, strong symbolic occasion, and hopefully the two leaders will get into the heart of the matter. Professor, thank you so much for joining us and providing your insights.
Thank you.